In the quiet town of Willow Creek, life was simple but not easy for 17-year-old Emily Carter. Her family lived in a rundown house at the edge of town. Emily's clothes were old, her shoes had holes, and she carried her books in a worn-out bag. At school, she sat in the back, avoiding attention. But Emily had dreams. She wanted to go to college and change her family's life. Her classmates often mocked her, calling her poor Emily. Their cruel words stung, but she kept her head high, holding on to her belief that better days would come. One Monday morning, Emily walked into school wearing a patched dress. The rich kids burst into laughter. "Looks like Emily found her dress in the trash," a girl named Jessica sneered. Emily ignored them and focused on the math problems on the board. Deep down, she was hurt, but she promised herself she wouldn't let their words break her spirit. That night, she stayed up late solving problems, her determination growing stronger with every number she wrote. After school, Emily often stopped by the library. One day, an elderly man named Mr. Thompson noticed her studying. "You're here every day," he said, smiling. Emily nodded shyly. "I want to learn as much as I can," she explained. Mr. Thompson admired her dedication and offered to tutor her. Emily was surprised but grateful. She didn't know this small act of kindness would soon change her life. At home, Emily's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Carter, worked hard but struggled to make ends meet. Her father worked at a factory, and her mother cleaned houses. Her little brother, Timmy, often asked why they didn't have the toys other kids had. Emily comforted him, promising that one day things would be better. She hated seeing her family struggle, and it motivated her to work harder. Despite Emily's efforts, she failed a history test. Her teacher, Mr. Allen, handed back the papers with a disappointed look. "Emily, I expected more from you," he said. The other students snickered. Emily felt humiliated but vowed to do better. That evening, she stayed up late reading history books, determined not to fail again. One evening, as Emily was doing her homework, her father came home with a letter. "It from the city council," he said, looking puzzled. Inside was an invitation for Emily to participate in a scholarship competition. If she won, it would cover her college expenses. Emily's heart raced. This was her chance to turn her dreams into reality. The competition wasn't easy. Emily faced students from wealthy families who had tutors and resources she could only dream of. But she poured her heart into every essay and exam, determined to prove she was just as capable. During one break, a boy named Jack, another competitor, noticed her old shoes. Instead of mocking her, he encouraged her. "Don't give up," he said. Emily came home one evening to find her mother smiling for the first time in weeks. "Someone left groceries on our doorstep," Mrs. Carter said. Inside were fresh vegetables, meat, and even a loaf of bread. Emily was touched but confused. Who would do such a kind thing? She wondered if it was Mr. Thompson or perhaps Jack from the competition. Just when things seemed to be looking up, disaster struck. Emily's father injured his back at the factory and could no longer work. The family's small savings quickly ran out, and bills piled up. Emily thought about quitting school to help, but her mother insisted she stay. "You're our only hope, Emily," she said. Those words weighed heavily on her. One stormy night, as the family sat around their dimly lit living room, there was a knock at the door. Standing there was Mr. Thompson, holding an envelope. "I have something for you," he said. Inside was a check. "This is for your education," he explained. Emily was speechless. She thanked him repeatedly, tears streaming down her face. It was a glimmer of hope during a dark time, but Emily sensed that more challenges lay ahead. Emily began using the money from Mr. Thompson to buy textbooks and supplies she had never been able to afford. For the first time, she didn't have to rely on worn-out hand-me-downs or scribbled notes borrowed from classmates. She created a study schedule and spent hours each night learning everything she could about public speaking and essay writing. Her dreams of winning the scholarship felt closer than ever. At the same time, the burden at home weighed heavily on her. Her father's injury left him bedridden, and her mother worked late into the night cleaning houses. Emily often stayed up caring for Timmy, helping him with homework while squeezing in her own studies. Despite these challenges, she refused to give up. "This is temporary," she reminded herself. "Better days will come." The next round of the competition required a group project, and Emily was paired with Jack, a boy she had started to notice more. Jack was friendly and approachable, offering to help with research and planning. At first, Emily hesitated to trust him. Most of the other competitors looked down on her, but Jack seemed different. As they worked together, Emily learned Jack's family wasn't as wealthy as they seemed. His father's business was struggling, and his family was barely holding on to their home. "It's not about where you come from," Jack said one evening as they worked late at the library. "It's about where you're going." Emily found comfort in his words. For the first time, she felt like she wasn't alone in her struggles. Just as things were improving, the Carter family faced another blow. Mr. Carter received news that the factory's compensation for his injury would be much lower than expected. The small check they received barely covered a month's rent and medical expenses. Emily's mother began taking on extra jobs, often working late into the night. One evening, Emily found her mother crying at the kitchen table. "I don't know how much longer we can keep this up," she whispered. Emily hugged her tightly. She wanted to quit school and find a job to help, but her mother insisted otherwise. "You're our hope, Emily," she said. Those words stayed with her, pushing Emily to work even harder. The scholarship competition entered its final stages, and the pressure intensified. The last challenge was a public speech. For Emily, who had always been shy, this was her worst fear. She practiced in front of the mirror every night, often stumbling over her words. Jack offered to help, sitting with her in the library after school. When the day of the speech arrived, Emily stood on stage, her knees shaking. She glanced at the audience and saw the mocking faces of Jessica and her friends. Taking a deep breath, she began to speak. Her words about resilience and hope captivated the judges. By the end, the room erupted in applause. Emily couldn't believe she had done it. One evening, as Emily studied at the library, a man in a sharp suit approached her. "Emily Carter," he asked, extending his hand. "I'm Mr. Raymond, a talent scout for young achievers." He handed her a sleek business card with a gold logo. "I've been following your progress in the competition. I believe you have great potential." Emily was taken aback but flattered. Mr. Raymond explained that he worked for an organization that sponsored talented students. "If you ever feel stuck or need resources, call me," he said with a smile. But as he walked away, Emily couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in her stomach. Something about him didn't seem entirely trustworthy. Life at home took another dark turn. One morning, Mrs. Carter discovered their bank account had been emptied. A scammer had tricked her into investing their small savings. Emily's parents were devastated. "It's all gone," her mother sobbed. Emily wanted to help, but her resources were limited. Desperate, she considered calling Mr. Raymond, hoping he could offer assistance. But something held her back. His smooth demeanor and vague promises seemed too good to be true. Instead, she doubled down on her studies, determined to win the scholarship and lift her family out of despair. Walking home from school, Emily noticed a black car parked near her house. The man inside looked familiar. She squinted and realized it was one of the judges from the scholarship competition. He appeared to be speaking with Mr. Raymond. They exchanged an envelope before driving away in opposite directions. Emily's heart raced. What were they doing in her neighborhood? Why would a competition judge be meeting Mr. Raymond in secret? She decided to keep a closer eye on both men, suspecting they might be involved in something unethical. At school, Emily overheard two competitors whispering in the hallway. "Raymond's paying off the judges," one said. "It's all rigged." Emily froze. Was the competition a sham? The thought crushed her. She had worked so hard, only to find out the results might be predetermined. That evening, Emily confided in Jack, who was equally shocked. Together, they decided to dig deeper. If Mr. Raymond was truly manipulating the competition, they needed to find proof. "We can't let him win," Jack said, his determination mirroring Emily's. Jack searched his father's office and found a folder labeled Raymond Corporation. Inside were documents detailing illegal activities, including bribery and fraud. Shocked, he shared the evidence with Emily. The files showed connections between Mr. Raymond and several high-ranking officials, including members of the scholarship committee. Emily's anger boiled over. She had poured her heart into the competition, only to discover it was tainted by corruption. Together, she and Jack began planning their next move. They needed more proof before they could expose the truth. Emily and Jack devised a plan to confront Mr. Raymond. Pretending to accept his offer, they met him at a coffee shop. Jack secretly recorded their conversation while Emily asked pointed questions. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, trying to sound curious. Mr. Raymond leaned back, a sly smile on his face. "Because people like you are easy to control," he said. Emily's stomach churned. His words confirmed her worst fears. They had enough evidence to expose him, but Emily knew they were only scratching the surface of a much bigger scheme. Emily and Jack sat nervously in the small, cluttered office of Ms. Carter, the investigative journalist they had turned to for help. Papers and old coffee cups littered her desk, but her sharp eyes were fixed on the documents they had brought. "You're not just dealing with one man," she said, leaning back in her chair. "This is a network, bribery, fraud, even blackmail. Raymond Corporation has been manipulating competitions and contracts for years." Ms. Carter warned them about the dangers ahead. "They'll do whatever it takes to protect their secrets," she said. Emily felt a chill run down her spine but refused to back down. Together, they planned their next steps. Ms. Carter would investigate Raymond's broader connections while Emily and Jack worked on gathering more evidence from within the competition. Meanwhile, Emily couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. A black car she had seen before appeared near her home again, its windows tinted. She told herself it was a coincidence, but doubt lingered. The gala dinner for the scholarship competition was a grand event held in the town's finest hotel. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, and wealthy families mingled, dressed in elegant gowns and sharp suits. Emily felt out of place in a second-hand dress borrowed from her neighbor. As the night went on, Emily noticed Mr. Raymond speaking in hushed tones with the head judge. Their expressions were tense, and Raymond's hand gestures seemed frantic. Something was happening, and Emily needed to find out what. Excusing herself from the table, Emily slipped into the hotel corridor. Following the faint sound of voices, she came across an open door leading to a private room. Peering in, she saw Mr. Raymond and the head judge. "The files are secure," the judge said, handing Raymond a folder. "But we need to act fast. If anyone talks, it's over for us." Emily quickly retreated, her heart racing. She didn't know what was in the folder, but it was clear they were hiding something big. She resolved to uncover the truth before it was too late. Late that night, Emily received an anonymous email with a video attachment. Clicking on it, she froze as she watched Jack sitting across from Mr. Raymond at a coffee shop. In the video, Jack handed Mr. Raymond an envelope, and the two appeared to be negotiating. Emily couldn't hear the audio clearly, but the sight of her closest ally dealing with the enemy made her stomach churn. The next day, Emily confronted Jack. "What is this?" she demanded, showing him the video. Jack's face went pale. "It's not what you think," he said hesitantly. "At first, I thought he could help my family. My dad's business was failing, and Raymond promised financial support. But when I realized what he was doing, I tried to back out." Jack explained that he had been coerced into gathering information about the other competitors, including Emily. "But I never gave him anything about you," he insisted. "I swear, Emily, I'm on your side now." Emily wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. She decided to move forward alone, unsure if she could fully trust Jack again. Emily met with Miss Carter again, sharing everything she had learned, including her confrontation with Jack. Together, they pieced together the full scope of Mr. Raymond's operations. He had been bribing judges and laundering money through the competition for years. Worse, he was using the competition to identify and manipulate vulnerable families, like Jack's, to further his schemes. Ms. Carter found records of suspicious financial transactions and forged documents connected to Raymond Corporation. They also uncovered proof that the head judge was complicit, working with Raymond to control the competition's outcomes. "He's desperate now," Ms. Carter said. "We need to act before he makes his move." Emily agreed, feeling a mix of fear and determination. They devised a plan to expose Mr. Raymond and his network during the gala's award ceremony, where the town's elite would be gathered. The gala reached its climax as the host announced the scholarship winner. Emily's name echoed through the room, and she walked to the stage, her heart pounding. Standing at the podium, she scanned the audience. Mr. Raymond sat near the front, his face unreadable. Jack was in the back, watching intently. Taking a deep breath, Emily began her speech. This competition was supposed to be about fairness and opportunity, she said. But I've learned that hasn't always been the case. As gasps rippled through the audience, Emily revealed the evidence she and Ms. Carter had gathered. A projector behind her displayed documents showing bribery, fraudulent financial records, and emails linking Mr. Raymond and the head judge. The crowd erupted in whispers as security approached Mr. Raymond. "You made a mistake," Raymond said, his voice icy. But his confidence wavered as more evidence was presented. The head judge tried to leave but was stopped by police officers waiting at the door. After the chaos subsided, Emily stood backstage, overwhelmed by what had just happened. Jack approached her, his expression sincere. "I'm sorry, Emily, for everything," he said. Emily nodded, unsure if she was ready to forgive but grateful for his support during the fallout. The scholarship money allowed Emily to pursue her dreams, and the town rallied around her family, offering support and opportunities. The Carter struggles didn't vanish overnight, but they now had hope for a brighter future. As for Mr. Raymond and his network, their downfall sent shockwaves through the town. Emily's bravery had exposed corruption at its core, proving that even the smallest voice could bring about justice. Luck hadn't simply shined on Emily and her family. They had earned their victory through courage and determination.
Please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe.